After a stern rebuke against Israel and Iran amid allegations of truce violations, U.S. President Donald Trump reaffirmed that a ceasefire is in effect. We have more on Press Perspective today. Hello and welcome to Thursday's edition of Press Perspective. It's June 26th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sunhee. Today we revisit concerns over Iran's nuclear weapons ambitions, even as a ceasefire is in effect, as announced by the US, to end Tehran's trade affair with Israel. For more on this, I have Chloe Borgnon with French broadcaster France 24 here in the studio. Chloe, welcome back to the studio.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I also have freelance reporter David Lee with us. David, welcome back.
It's good to be back.
Right, Chloe, let's begin with the latest on the situation over in the Middle East. Now, a ceasefire, albeit fragile one, is still in place.
Yes, the ceasefire is still holding on. It took hold on Tuesday, so it's the third day going on. It was announced by Donald Trump in a very usual manner from him, saying that it was complete and total ceasefire, capital letters. And it was marking a break from 12 days of war between Israel and Iran. It is, as you said, quite fragile. It went with a very rocky start because within the first few minutes of the ceasefire agreement, Israel accused Iran of breaching the agreement, and they said that they would respond forcefully, but Donald Trump was not having it, so he said that it was not going to happen like that. He intervened, and there were no attacks. So, as we can see, even if it was fragile, it's still going on, it's still happening for now, and it's giving a bit of a break in the situation, because it's been like quite a lot of things have been happening in the last days in Iran and between Iran and Israel. So if we look at Iran, there was the bombing by the United States on 3 nuclear site locations in Iran. Trump is speaking about a total destruction of the site. At least he's saying it's also delaying the nuclear program from Iran for at least a decade. Iran, on their side, doesn't want to give up its nuclear program. They have just, like the parliament has voted a bill saying that they will stop cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. So this is the United Nations watchdog on the non-proliferation of atomic energies. And so that they just made the choice to, at the moment, not collaborate with them, so probably not allow experts to come visit the installations. Yesterday, they were already speaking about it. So the agency has said that there was an obligation for Iran to stay on the program and that they could not choose to leave it. So that's probably the most developing situation at the moment. And there is also the question of 400 kilos of enriched uranium that was, Iran said that it was displaced before the American attack. The US is saying that it might not, and the Atomic Agency is saying that they lost track of it because of the attack. So we don't really know what's going on. As you see, this is probably the most difficult situation at the moment, the most problematic one. And there is also, Donald Trump said that there will be talks between the United States and Iran, so probably on this question about nuclear program, but as well as a more final ceasefire. But Donald Trump has been saying it in a very detached manner. He said that, and I'm quoting him, "We may sign an agreement, I don't know." He has not given any time, any date on when they will be speaking. And he also said, and I'm quoting him directly again, "The way I look at it, they fought. The war is done." So as you can see, for Donald Trump, the ceasefire is kind of the agreement that he wanted to reach. Let's see how it's going to develop in the next days, or this probably will be mostly on next week.
Right. Meanwhile, David, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, right after the US strike against 3 Iranian nuclear sites, went to Russia. He met with Russia and President Vladimir Putin. What has been shared about that particular meeting?
Yeah, so this meeting took place just 2 days after the US strikes on the Fordo nuclear facility and other sites in Iran. And I think the headlines were kind of focusing on how President Putin was denouncing the US strike, the US bombings in Iran, and emphasized providing assistance to Iran. And they also revisited the strategic partnership agreement between Iran and Russia that was conceived just 5 months ago. But in the agreement, they also mentioned how there's no real mutual defense clause, so that Russia really isn't formally obligated to come to Iran's defense in the case of such military conflicts. So, I think it was interesting. The Wall Street Journal called Russia's reaction to Iran as turning a cold shoulder on their ally. And I think it's because there's really no tangible kind of assistance that Russia has kind of promised to Iran, other than President Putin first offering to kind of act as a role of mediation between Iran and Israel. But even that, after President Trump kind of took on the helm of taking charge of the negotiations between Israel and Iran, he kind of backtracked and saying that for mediation, he went to kind of suggesting ideas for the negotiations or the relationship going forward. So, those are kind of what's been developed after the meeting between the foreign minister and President Putin.
Right, and staying with that, Chloe, what more can you tell us about Russia's stance with regard to the events unfolding over in the Middle East?
Yeah, so just as David has said, it's true that most pundits have said that it was kind of a very lukewarm reaction. So President Putin first commented on the US strikes on Iran, where obviously he was saying that it was an unprovoked aggression. But it's interesting to see that for now, if we look at what Moscow said, they said that they will make efforts to help Tehran, depending on the needs of Iran, depending on what Iran is asking of them. There is not a lot of tangible things for the moment. Dmitry Peskov, the Russian president's spokesperson, he said that they could make the mediation effort because, as David was saying, the US is kind of there, but mostly on the Israeli side. So there's this idea from Moscow to be on the Iranian side. He was also asked if they could send weapons. He said, again, like very not tangible answer, he said that it depends on Iran, depends on what Iran is asking of them. There's also another part that could be more problematic, more stressful, let's say, is the former Russian president, Dmitry Medvedev, who's the deputy chairman of the Security Council of Russia now. And he was saying that Donald Trump pushed the US, the United States, into the war. And he was also saying that countries, he's not specifying which one, is not citing Russia itself, but he was saying that countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads. So this is kind of, stressful situation regarding the risk of nuclear war, and nuclear deterrence is always quite a strong point. So this is not any kind of suggestion that he's making there, and he's linking it mostly to the fact that the United States have been also attacking Iran on the nuclear sites.
Right. In the meantime, David, how might potential support, tangible support this is, hypothetically speaking, how might tangible support from Russia to Iran perhaps affect the Trump administration's foreign policy, do you think?
I think it would really depend on the extent of such Russian support, whether it's funding, it's providing technology or weapons or even, infantry. So, but I think the key point here is that President Trump has sort of taken a more isolationist approach towards the situation in Ukraine, considering how the Biden administration, they provided weapons aid to Ukraine from the start, but President Trump has kind of discontinued that. We also know about the kind of disastrous meeting with Zelensky back in January, I think. And they recently just met up again at the NATO summit. And it appears this time it was a little bit better, but he's still kind of ambiguous in his answers about providing assistance to Ukraine. And then there's President Trump also has to balance his kind of promise of keeping President Putin in check, kind of rebuilding that relationship with Russia. And then also he's kind of branding himself as this peacemaker in the Middle East. So, you know, these are all factors that would contribute to whether he would change his foreign policy stance. As of now, it kind of seems like the situation with Israel in the Middle East is a little bit more important on his agenda. So I don't know if I could say that he would likely change his stance in Ukraine, but we never know about other circumstances that could happen, you know, such as oil prices, because Iran is such a crucial kind of region in terms of transportation of oil. Whether oil prices will force his voters to, you know, say otherwise. We don't know if there's going to be threats to the U.S. troops in the Middle East. So yeah, those are some things that might make him consider taking a more containment strategy in the region to kind of protect his national interests in that region.
Chloe, against this backdrop of heightened tensions in the Middle East, this year's NATO summit took place in the Netherlands. What were some of your takeaways from this year's annual defense summit?
Yeah, so I mean, the main takeaway that we could get is, first of all, that it went quite well. I mean, the allies have always been a bit worried about Donald Trump's takes on NATO. He has been saying a few times beforehand that he was not really happy with the alliance. I mean, the United States are the backbones of this alliance. If they were to get away from NATO, NATO would not be strong enough, probably. So we've discussed here already beforehand when European nations were speaking about making their own collective army. So, I mean, this time we can see that it went well. The main things that happened, there's the big raise on defense budget for the allies. So the United States, and that was one of the war horse of Donald Trump, was to get the allies to pay more for their defense. He's been saying it quite a lot. So there is a commitment to a 5% raise in defense spending over the next decade. You know, will it happen? I mean, right now, it's currently a 2% guideline, and on the 32 members of NATO, there are 8 of them who are not meeting it. So will they be able to raise up to 5% in 10 years, especially right now with all the other subjects on the economy, like balance that you have to get? It's kind of hard to know, but at least that's something that Donald Trump got from this summit. Another thing that could reassure the allies is Donald Trump said that he stands with Article 5, Article 5 being the most important article of the NATO alliance, saying that an attack against one of the members is an attack against all. And this is probably the biggest deterrent from this NATO alliance, is saying to, especially for Russia, for example, would be saying to another country, if you are attacking any one of the members, all the other one can come and rescue them. So this is also something that was important for them, because we know that Donald Trump policies are mostly isolationism and one just America first. So that was interesting to see him say that he do believe in the Article 5. And the last thing was an interesting change compared to last year in the end of the summit, the collective declaration. Last year on the position on Russia. So last year they were speaking about brutal war of aggression from Russia against Ukraine, and this year they have turned it into long-term threat posed by Russia to Euro-Atlantic security, and we know where it comes from. As David was saying, it's mostly a choice by the US to try and soften the position against Russia, to try to be able to get dialogue again with Vladimir Putin.
Right. Chloe, as you mentioned, so Mr. Trump at the NATO summit reaffirmed the US commitment to Article 5 of NATO, which was quite reassuring for members of the NATO, I'm sure. That being said, do you suppose NATO could be drawn into conflict with Iran, keeping in mind, of course, the Trump administration's stance against Iran's nuclear weapons ambitions?
Yeah, so as you were saying, it would be Article 5 could be used if there was an attack against the United States. It's the European leaders on their side on this Iranian to Israel conflicts. They have called for de-escalation and diplomatic solutions. So for now, at least in their stance, the European leaders do not want to go to war, but this is also important to note that the United States have not officially declared war on Iran, and the Vice President Vance say again that the US are not at war with Iran, but at war with its nuclear program. So for now, there have been no strong retaliation from Iran. They have been like sending some missiles against one of the bases of the US, but the US have not, like Donald Trump say that they were warned in advance. And so I feel like for now it has not been considered by the US as, you know, starting the war. But it could be, like the United States could call on Article 5. They did it, they invoked it only once, and that was the only time this article has been invoked. And it was in 9/11, 2001 terror attacks when the United States were strikes on their territory. And they called for Article 5 to get help in their war in Afghanistan afterwards.
Right. Meanwhile, David, what has been the South Korean government's response to the violence in the Middle East?
So first, the most immediate action that the government had to take was to evacuate the people in Israel and Iran, and they consequently supported the evacuation of 150 nationals and their families from the countries. But as the conflict kind of ensued and, you know, the bombings continued, kind of a spotlight was put on Iran's kind of successful penetration of Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. And this is a system that's widely known, kind of considered as the world's kind of premier, most sophisticated missile defense system, also most dense. And the reason that these missiles were so successful in creating damage was that some of the missiles would reach speeds of up to or more than Mach 10, and it was not just long-range ballistic missiles they were using. They were kind of mixing in with short and mid-range missiles as well. So that kind of, I guess, created kind of confusion to the Iron Dome and their other anti-missile defense systems in Israel. And this is a point of interest for South Korea because obviously North Korea, in recent years, they've been developing, testing a variety of different missiles. And we can't really ignore the quantity and the variety of their arsenal, right? And they're even known to have surpassed the capabilities that Iran has. So this is something that is of concern for South Korea in terms of national defense. But at the same time, South Korea has been investing trillions of won in their missile defense systems, the Korea Air and Missile Defense System, and also they have a preemptive strike system called the Kill Chain, which is kind of like if there's any threats that they can see from the north, they would strike the facilities beforehand, before any attacks would ensue. But yeah, this is something that the experts in South Korea, they've been watching closely as the events unfolded in Iran and Israel.
And speaking about South Korea's concerns with regard to North Korea, Chloe, based on the US's actions against Iranian nuclear sites, what assumptions can we make about the US's potential future engagement or manner of engagement with North Korea, given the regime's own nuclear weapons?
Yeah, so it's interesting to note that, so we were saying that the United States say that G.D. Vance is saying that they are at war with the Iranian nuclear program. And it's interesting to say that they've also been speaking about the denuclearization of North Korea. So in the same sense, it's been linked with the same subject of Iranian war, of the United States attack on Iranian nuclear site. The State of Department spokesperson in the US said that the United States want complete denuclearization of North Korea. The thing is, it could be seen by North Korea, this linking of bombing specific nuclear sites and linking it to their question of their nuclear program could either be seen as a deterrent or a threat by North Korea. So that's something that we would have to see later on, because we know that North Korean regime is quite attached to their nuclear program. That's seen as a way to get independence and to defend themselves. So, I mean, in the same time, we can see that North Korea's tone has been quite careful in criticizing the United States. They have been condemning Israel and the United States attacks on Iran. I mean, Iran is still a close ally to North Korea, but it's interesting to see that they have recently avoided direct criticism to Donald Trump actions, and they also, in the same time, just like Russia, giving the cold shoulder as well to Iran. But it's interesting to see that they have chosen careful wordings and they have not raised up too much tension while criticizing what was going on. So we can see here that they're probably kind of on a wait-and-see position to see how dialogue could go with the United States.
Right, a wait-and-see approach for the moment for North Korea then. All right, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Chloe, as always, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.
And David, thank you very much for your insights.
It was a pleasure.
Right, well, that ends this edition of Press Perspective. As always, thank you for watching.